Welcome CBOs to the Construction Business Blueprint YouTube channel, the only place for CBOs to get more time, profit control in their trade and construction business. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about something a little different. We're going to move out of the direct business teaching aspect and we're going to talk about more of the mindset of a construction and trade business owner. So we're going to talk about why letting go feels so hard, and each of these topics again come from all the conversations that I have with hundreds and hundreds of trade and construction business owners every single week. I want to go a wee bit deeper in the mindset today, and I say this at every single one of my events. I say this to every new client. When I talk about mindset, I don't talk about manifestation or visualization. I talk about, again, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, things like that. Your thinking behavior. That's what I talk about when I talk about mindset, okay? Not to say that there's not a place for those other things, but what I use and how I talk about mindset is different from most. So what I talk about isn't just surface level thinking, not just positivity. The psychology behind how trade and construction business owners actually think is what I want to talk about today, because there's a belief that I hear constantly, and I know most of you are probably nodding your head when I say it, and if you're honest, most of you have thought it or said it a million times. Everybody's useless. Nothing gets done properly unless I'm there. If I don't stay on top of it, it all falls apart. These are all the things you've probably said 3 or 4 times this week alone. And that belief isn't just with you, it runs deep, deep in the industry. But here's the question I want you to sit with. How do you think other businesses do it? How do you think, even inside construction, outside construction, because they do exist and they are not superhuman. They are not smarter than you, they do not work harder than you. So what exactly do you believe is different about your business or about your approach or your team that is so different from everybody else? That's not a sarcastic question, that's a psychological question. So I want to talk about the control illusion, and because I want to talk about what is really happening here behind the scenes or subconsciously. Most construction business owners confuse involvement with control. Being everywhere, doing everything, answering every call, checking every single detail, that feels like control. But psychologically, it's not control. It's anxiety management, it's fear. Staying involved reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is very, very uncomfortable. So the brain says, if I stay close, I stay safe. It feels comfortable. But that's not leadership, that's survival wiring. That is a limiting belief. That gets us into letting go and why letting go feels unsafe. So here's what business psychology tells us. Construction business owners usually build a business through competence. You were good on the tools, you solved problems, you saved jobs, you fixed mistakes. Your identity became, I'm the reliable one. And that's probably why you've been out in business on your own in the first place. So when someone else does the work that it's not exactly how you would do it, your nervous system sort of sees that as a threat or a concern. Not to the job, but to your identity. If they can do it without you, what does that say about your value? That's the uncomfortable bit that nobody talks about. If it doesn't take your input and you're maybe not needed as much anymore, is that a fear? Is that a concern that you have? Is that an insecurity? But let's talk about the cost of that belief. And let's look at what that mindset creates. For you, it creates constant mental load, inability to switch off, decision fatigue, and burnout masked as commitment. For your team, that also will transpire into them not taking ownership. They've learned helplessness, like they can't make a decision without you. The fear of making decisions in case you come in and say something about it or overrule them. And that then makes them reliant on you making every single decision. Even though they could probably have the capability and ability to do it themselves, you've sort of taken that away from them. Because if you correct everything, control everything, redo everything, you're training people to actually stop thinking. And then you say, there you go, see, I can't leave them alone, it doesn't work. But that's not proof, that's conditioning, and conditioning on your mental conditioning and conditioning that you've placed on them. So let's talk about the remittance, okay? Why owners pull responsibility back onto themselves. Again, I've touched on it already. Psychology is driven by 3 things. It's fear of failure, fear of reputational damage, and fear of losing control in your business. So instead of designing systems, you become the system. And that works until the business grows or until you break. But the truth that most people avoid is if your business only works when you're present, then you don't own a business. I've said that a million times. You own a job with overheads and massive responsibility. Other businesses don't work without the owner out of chance. It happens because they've designed it that way. That's how they've set up and structured the business. Not because their staff are better than yours, not because the industry is easier, because they planned for their absence. They planned on actually working on the business and they know where they're valued more. Now this links directly into planning. Most business owners keep everything in their head. tasks, standards, expectations, decisions, and the brain hates uncertainty. So when it's all in your head, you feel important, but you're trapped. A plan removes ambiguity. A plan turns thoughts into structure, and structure what allows delegation without the fear of letting go. So I've got a quick exercise for everybody to do here so you can actually put this into action in your business. And this is where the value is going to be in this. I want you to do this properly. Take a notepad and write at the top of the page, if I stepped away from this business for 2 weeks, what would break? And don't just say everything. I want you to list everything that comes to mind, not just tasks. I want you to think of like what decisions couldn't be made, what relationships or communication would break down. So client relationships, team relationships, what approvals couldn't be made. So is that financial decisions, ordering materials, what knowledge isn't there anymore? So what do you know that your team don't know? Where is there a training gap? What access it gets removed then? And then I want you to be brutally honest with that there. Now, when you've wrote that out, I want you to write next to each one, is this process documented? Is this communicated? Or is this just all in my head? Now, what you're looking at here is not incompetence, it's dependency. And dependency is a design issue, not a people issue. So we need to look at an identity shift, okay? We touched on in an earlier video there as well. The real mindset shift is this. Not how do I make this better, it's how do I make this work without me? What do I need in order to take myself away from this task? That's ownership and that's leadership. That's the difference between a tradesman who owns work and an owner who owns a business. So let's look at why this plan matters going into the new year, why identifying this matters. Walking into the new year without a plan, without clarity, without structure, means you default to control through presence, and that's exhausting. A plan doesn't restrict you, it frees you up. It gives your team certainty, and certainty builds confidence both in you and in the team. So if you're feeling stretched, over-responsible, and struggling to switch off or take yourself away from the business, it's not because people are useless, it's because the business is built around you and you have built it that way. But that can change, but only when the mindset shifts first. So from control to design, from involvement to structure, and from reacting to actually leading. So if you watch this video and you're still struggling to sort of identify how you can make that shift, or if you're sitting there thinking, I really need a plan in place here, please feel free to reach out. You can comment under this video, you can reach out to me on socials, DM, whatever it may be, but reach out, put a plan in place, get the structure, change the identity, make the shift, and make 2026 the best year you've had in business yet.